Hey, we're pleased to once again have Gabe DeArmond from PowerMizzou on the show. Gabe, thank you so much for making the time.
Yeah, appreciate it, Mike. How you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing really well, but I really wanted to have you on just for this one question. What is it like to cover an SEC program that knows how to beat the Big Ten?
Yeah, Missouri just out here carrying the flag, right? Just like everybody has always said since they joined the league, it's a good thing. Good thing we've got Missouri here to represent us against everybody else in the country. I don't know if they got the best Big Ten team in the country, but then again, I don't think Alabama got the best Big Ten team in the country either. So, a little feather in the cap for Missouri fans. I know they're happy to have done that, and hey, they beat Ohio State and may not have been the full version of Ohio State last year, but I don't think anybody cares.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I asked you that because that is the number one thing we're hearing from Missouri fans right now. So thankfully somebody did it. I didn't know the Big Ten could get beat, but let's go back to that game, beating Iowa, and Brady Cook played so well in that game. His time at Missouri is obviously ending. What do you think? What's his legacy at Missouri after 21 wins the last two seasons?
Yeah, just a winner. I mean, that's what it is, right? It's statistically, he's not the best quarterback they've ever had. I mean, I think if you did like a quarterback draft of Missouri quarterbacks since 2000, I don't know, he goes like fifth, maybe. But if you say, okay, you are down 4 points and you get the ball back with 2:30 left, who do you want to have the ball? Nobody's been better than him at it. I mean, the knock against Drew Lock was he did it all game, but then at the end, it didn't happen, right? I mean, Chase Daniel honestly had a couple chances like this and didn't necessarily get it done. Brady, nobody comes through every time, but Brady has gotten it done a whole lot more than he hasn't. And I thought that was a great way for him to go out with arguably the best game he's ever played at Missouri.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that was, well, then coming off that snow game, I mean, yeah, you could have scripted it any better for him, you know?
Yeah, I mean, maybe could have scripted don't lose 34-0 to A&M and don't have to leave against Alabama and you're playing in the playoff. But other than that, if you're telling me, yeah, you're 8-3 going into Arkansas, the last two went pretty well.
Mm. Are you comfortable saying that Eli Drinkwitz is a top 5 coach in the SEC right now, or are you still kind of wait and see to give him that kind of praise?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I'd really have to go through it. He's certainly in that conversation with the job he's done. But I hesitate to even have that conversation anymore because in this day and age, it's never been easier to go from like 4-8 to 10-2. But it's also never been easier to go from 10-2 to 4-8, right? So I think Eli and any other coach in this league would tell you, hey, it's a year-to-year business. And yeah, right now he is in great shape. And then 12 months from now, we'll reassess and the rankings might look completely different.
Right. But I mean, safe to say he's got universal praise for the job he's doing. I know. And we were very responsible for some of it with the playoff or bust talk. Shane and I, we hyped up Mizzou to no end, and they fell just short of that. But it's hard to, again, and also a factor into this is, I mean, just the massive turnover in the SEC. I mean, Drink is tied for the third most tenured coach in the conference, which is insane. But it seems like he is doing almost as well as you could possibly do, given taking over during COVID even.
Yeah, that's unbelievable that it seems like 3 years ago that he got hired here. I had no idea it was that high up the list, but yeah, I mean, he's got all the job security in the world. He's here as long as he wants to be here for the time being. Right. I mean, 5 years from now that may look different, but if you build Missouri up to a place where they go 10-3, and there's a legitimate conversation that it's okay for Missouri fans to be a little disappointed in that, then yeah, you've done something pretty well.
Right. Well, speaking of coaching, who do you think did a better job? Because it's interesting. I listen to your show all the time, PowerMizzou, and Corey Batoon did. He caught some flack there. I would certainly say they didn't finish as well as they started, but they started very well. Meanwhile, Kirby Moore, coming into the year, looked like one of the best offensive coordinators in the conference, and not saying that he did a bad job, but you know better than I, but it seemed like it took about 2/3 of the season for them to finally start clicking. So, which coordinator do you think did a better job this season?
I mean, I'd break it down to the simplest way to look at it is Missouri's defense was better than I thought it was going to be, and the offense wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be. So I think you've got to go Corey Batoon that way. And look, Missouri lost a first rounder at defensive end, a second rounder at corner, a fifth rounder who actually ended up, playing a lot for a playoff team down the stretch at corner, and a third rounder at linebacker. So you lose all that on your defense, and your defense does not get appreciably worse. I think the fans that didn't think Batoon did a good job, or I think they have probably unrealistic hopes.
And so going into year 2, I always look at that. Of course, I guess you could spin it and say, well, Kirby Moore, we didn't take that step forward year 2. But generally, I look at year 2 with a coordinator taking a big step forward. Are you anticipating that with the defense, or is it just kind of maintaining with all the portal additions and the guys that you're losing to graduation in the NFL?
That's the thing, right? They lose so many guys. I mean, Johnny Walker's gone. Christian Williams gone. Corey Flagg gone. Joseph Charleston gone. I mean, they lose a lot of guys, so they're going to bring in new guys in. And I think the days of, hey, this is your third year in the system or whatever, and you've picked it up, or I don't want to say they're gone, but there's a lot less of it than there used to be. It's a lot more just rebuild every year. So I think the goal for Missouri has to be maintain on defense and find a way to get to where everybody thought you were going to be on offense last year. Because, look, I mean, Brady had a great finish, but he didn't have a great year. I mean, Luther Burden's going to go in the top 15 of the NFL draft. He wasn't the leading receiver on his own team. The tight end position didn't do a lot this year. So I think there's a lot of room for improvement offensively. Of course, you're bringing in a new quarterback, so that's tough to say.
Well, I know, and you're well aware as well, but for months and months and months, all we heard about was this Oklahoma game. Could you have ever imagined such an ugly football game, with such a beautiful ending for Missouri fans?
I could absolutely have imagined an ugly football game. I think I picked it like 16-12 or something like that. So I fully anticipated ugly by the time we got to it. I don't know that I've ever personally been at a football game that had a wilder ending than that did. It was a lot of fun. It was definitely, like we talked at the end of the year, if we look back, I mean, that's the one Missouri fans are going to remember, right? Not just because of the way it ended, but because it was Oklahoma. And even though it was not vintage Oklahoma, it still meant a lot to Mizzou fans.
Yeah. Any surprise? I mean, any surprise at all that Drink came out right after? And what does he say? Something Bob Stoops with, they don't always whoop Missouri's ass or whatever.
All right, good evening, everyone. Coach, why don't you begin with an opening statement?
Yeah, this will be real disappointing to Bob Stoops, but OU doesn't always whip Missouri's ass anymore. So with that, I'll open up for questions.
If you ask me any surprise that Eli Drinkwitz said blank, the answer is always no. Like that dude, all week leading up to that game, he said nothing. He was so boring. And he just had that sitting there going, please, God, let us win, because I can't wait to say this at the microphone.
Well, something else that he said this technically off season, I guess, is what we value production over potential. Yeah, was that said? Do you think do you think that's how he really feels? Was this when he knew some of these freshmen going into year 2 players were exiting the program? What do you think was the thought behind that statement?
Yeah, I think it was the word spin has a negative connotation, right? And I don't mean it to be a negative comment, but it's what you say when you lose the guys with potential like Kewan Lacey, Jalen Brown, Williams Winery. That's what you say. Had they lost guys that ran for 1,500 yards and had 9 sacks and brought in guys like Kewan Lacey and Williams Winery, then the response is, oh man, look at the potential of these kids. We love these kids. They've got such a bright future, so I don't tend to put a whole lot of stock into what they say. But the portal, the way I assess it, did you get out of it more than you put into it? And I think Missouri has for the last 2 years. And I think there's a pretty good chance they did again this year.
Right. I'm glad you said that. So according to 24/7 Sports, Missouri's got the number 9 portal class in the country. So yeah, they're certainly adding a lot. And I think that is something that across the country, across the SEC, quite frankly, teams are having to figure out, do we want to spend money on potential or do we want to spend it on production? Do you think that will prove to be a wise strategy for Missouri?
I mean, I think you've got to do both right now. My problem with NIL has been like a kid like Williams Nwaneri should not be one of the top 5 highest paid players on your team, right? It was the problem with the NFL until the NFL Players Association said, no, this is dumb. Sam Bradford doesn't get $50 million. We're going to fix this. Well, there is no union. There is no collective bargaining in college football, so it can't be fixed. So to get kids like that, you almost have to pay them that amount of money. But then all you've really done is groom them for somebody else. I said I would never redshirt a kid ever. I don't care who he is. I would put him out there for like 5 games on the extra point team, because then worst case scenario, he's going somewhere else and he only has 3 years to play for that somebody else. Like, I don't even care if he's good. Just put him out there for 5 games, burn the red shirt. So but I think you can't just say, you can't ignore the portal. You can't take the, I mean, even Dabo's in it now, right? But you also can't like, you have to have some guys who have been here and can show the other guys how your program works. Like, part of this program being good the last couple of years is Darius Robinson, is Brady Cook, is Johnny Walker, is honestly even Luther Burden was here for 3 years, right? Is Theo Weiss became a guy in his second year who could help those new guys understand, okay, this is how we do things. This is what matters. We're going to show you the ropes, and you can just jump in here and contribute immediately because we are already pulling the heavy weight. We just need your help. Like, you can't do it with 40 mercenaries in a year and expect to be great, but you do have to use it.
Now, everything's changing so quickly. It's kind of hard to navigate this landscape of what exactly is coming, but let's just, for the sake of this conversation, assume that the revenue sharing is coming as we envision it will, which will be, around 20 million for sports, and I think they're going to allocate around 15 million roughly to football. Let's just assume that happens. Would that be a good thing or a bad thing for Missouri? Because I know Missouri's got a lot of in-state advantages, and they've been quite active in NIL in the portal. How do you weigh that for the program?
It seems to be good for Missouri, right? I mean, the last 2 or 3 years, Missouri has done it pretty well. Desiree Reed-Francois deserves a lot of credit. Laird Veach for continuing it. And they've got a guy who understands, like, Eli Drinkwitz has made it pretty clear. Look, I don't love this. There have to be some rules. The way we do things is stupid, but as long as this is how we're doing them, I'm going to figure out how to best do it to my advantage. And that's what you have to do. I mean, you can't sit up there and cry about it. You can't take your ball and go home. I mean, I guess you can retire, but I think Eli's, 41 years old or whatever. I don't think he's doing that. So I think Missouri's got the right guy to do this. What I'm interested in seeing is, I think the Wild West part of it all has helped Missouri, has helped Ole Miss, has helped a bunch of other places, because there literally is no limit. And, you can do whatever you want. Hey, if your donors will cough up the money, you can spend it. So now if we go back to theoretically, I guess, the salary cap, for lack of a better word, I think what all of us in these maybe non-traditional SEC power markets are waiting to see is, okay, are we just setting up? Yeah, cool. Everybody's got 20 million, but son, you come down here, we got this guy. He gonna get you an extra little bit if you come down here to play down in the old boy SEC network. Or are we just going back to the briefcases on the park bench? And what I've said is Missouri fans have shown they're willing to do this when it's legal. Will they be willing to do it when maybe it's not strictly legal? Because I promise you the vast majority of this league will, because the vast majority of this league always has.
Yeah. Well, obviously, you're probably going to get asked this a million times if you haven't already, but Beau Pribula, I hope I'm saying that right. What do you think Missouri's getting in him? And are we completely writing off Sam Horn as a potential week 1 starter?
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea what Beau Pribula is as a quarterback, honestly. I mean, I'm not – he popped in the portal and there were fans on our board saying, hey, this guy's kind of intriguing. I didn't have any – why would I know Penn State's backup quarterback? I'd never heard of him. I didn't know who he was. I mean, I knew who Drew Aller was, but that was about it. I'm not sitting watching Penn State games in garbage time. I got no interest in that. So, again, it's why I don't put a lot of stock in the production over potential thing. Well, the most important position on the field, you just went with potential, right? So, we'll see what it is. There's a lot of upside there. I've heard a lot of good things. A lot of people think he's a plus level athlete, potential NFL quarterback. Definitely. I also know that if you watch Penn State play in the playoff, like there were Missouri fans who go, hang on, should I be a little concerned that our guy couldn't beat that guy out? Because that wasn't impressive. So we'll see. I don't have a clue what to expect out of him. I'm not writing off Sam Horn, but I would phrase it as like, okay, they're going to have an open competition. And I would assume that Beau Pribula is heavily favored to win that open competition. Doesn't mean Sam can't, because NIL payments, stars, all that, none of that matters once you're on campus. The second you step on campus, you're no longer a 5-star making $2 million or whatever. You're just a guy trying to win a job. And if Sam Horn's the best guy, or Drew Pine or whoever's the best guy, they'll win it. But I think the expectation certainly is that Pribula will.
Mm-hmm. And then what was your level of surprise, if at all, that they managed to get Damon Wilson from Georgia? Because I spoke with Georgia people as soon as he went in the portal, and it was almost a foregone conclusion he was going to go to Ohio State, and we all know the money they spend, yet he ends up at Missouri. So that seems like a big coup.
Oh, yeah. I think that was the day he went in the portal, I think there were a couple recruiting people that put in predictions to Ohio State, right? And so you just kind of assume, well, he visited there out of high school, he's going in for a reason. But once he took a visit to Columbia, it made you think, hey, this is certainly more possible than we thought. And obviously, I think Missouri made put together a compelling package for him. And the idea is here, hey, you step in for Johnny Walker, and we've got Dara Smith, who also came from Georgia, coming off a knee injury, and hopefully we can replace that pass rush that we're losing, because I think they felt like that was the one thing they didn't know they had on defense, and I feel like again, probably more potential over production here, right? But they think they hope they have it.
Right. And again, to go back to what we just said a moment ago, I mean, this is just a Wild West. It's a new era, but it sounds like had he continued to progress, he would have started at Georgia. Mm-hmm. Never in a million years would you say, well, Missouri's picking off Georgia's starting potential players, but that's the world we're in right now.
Right. And he I think from everything I've heard, Georgia liked him as kind of more as a 3-4 outside linebacker, and he wanted to be more of a traditional defensive end. So that has something to do with it. But it also is one of those things that you look at from the outside and go, it kind of seems like we got guys leaving just because they can leave. I mean, you would never think, and it's not a shot at Missouri. You would never think a kid in position to be a starter next year at Georgia is entering the transfer portal unless there's something crazy going on. But that's where we are.
So aside from Pribula, aside from Wilson, who comes pretty lauded, but is there maybe one or two that transfer additions that Missouri landed that you think are primed to make a huge impact next season?
Yeah, I'll give you 3. Ahmad Hardy, the running back, runs for 1,300 yards at Louisiana Monroe. He had more yards after contact than any Missouri running back had, period, last year. We had him on one of our podcasts. Hilarious dude, great personality, and I think Missouri fans are really going to like him. Kevin Coleman, St. Louis kid, basically steps into the Luther Burden role. Same number, same city, all that. Second team All SEC last year, and really probably should have been first team. I mean, his numbers were better than Luther's were. And then the other guy is Jeremiah, I'm going to call him Jeremiah Trotter every day of his career here because that's his dad's name. But Josiah Trotter, the linebacker from West Virginia, he and Hardy were both freshman All-Americans. And I think he's a guy that Missouri really likes in the middle, had visited Washington, looked some other places. And so I think those guys, along with then Wilson and Pribula, are the headliners.
And then I'm sure you have looked at it. I don't know if you've studied it as much as we have, but the upcoming schedule for Missouri next year, 6 consecutive home games to open the thing. Well, I guess the real question is, who did Missouri bribe to get these slates they're getting?
Yeah, the funny thing is, I don't think Missouri likes that much at all, because what it means is you've got 4 of your last 6 on the road, right? You've got to have homecoming in September. I think Missouri would love to be on the road at some point in those first 6 games and break that up a little bit. I mean, the opponents, we always knew what the opponents were going to be. They were going to be the same ones this year when the schedule was relatively favorable, right? But especially in the portal era, I mean, I don't know. Who knows? Oklahoma might be a lot better. Maybe Jackson Arnold wakes up and maybe Auburn's next year's Indiana. You know, I mean, we can look at it and what we think it is right now. But, yeah, I mean, Missouri was probably 1 win away from legitimate playoff contention this year. And next year, the schedule, I mean, if these transfers are what you hope they are, and specifically if the quarterback is what you think he is, then I think you ought to go into those last 3-4 weeks of the season absolutely expecting to be in kind of that same position.
And how much will be on the line? And I just mean bragging rights, you know, with the fans with the Kansas game.
Oh yeah, no question. You know, because Missouri fans' whole thing was, and I'll be honest, that was a basketball rivalry to me growing up. You know, like I understand to a lot of people, I don't care if it's checkers, if their jerseys say Kansas and ours say Missouri, we're going to try to murder them. And like legitimately, I don't know if you guys know this. I don't know if a lot of people know it. It legitimately goes back to murder, right? Like that rivalry is legitimately built in the Civil War on bloodshed. So it's not just basketball, but to me on the field, it was always a basketball rivalry because when I was growing up in Kansas City, they called Mizzou, Kansas, and Kansas State the Bermuda Triangle of college football. And hey, if you could go 2-9, baby, if you could get that KU and K-State game, it wasn't that bad a year. But Missouri fans' whole thing was, well, if they're not going to play us in the only sport they care about, then why should we play them in football? And so the basketball rivalry has come back. Missouri won it this year for the first time. And it would hurt Missouri fans so bad if Kansas football came to Columbia and won a game. I mean, because if Kansas wins that game, then you're going, oh, the rest of this year, like that's not what we're talking about anymore. We're just trying to win 7 or 8. And that's not where Missouri fans want to be after week 1 or 2, whenever they play.
Right. All right, Gabe, I appreciate your time. I just got one more thing for you. I don't know if you're aware of this, but as I understood it, Missouri was on a horrible losing streak in basketball.
I've heard, yes.
And then one cousin Shane made an appearance, not just for the Oklahoma football game, but for the basketball game, whoever they were playing. They won that game. And if I think I heard this right, I don't think they've lost since at home. So how responsible do you think cousin Shane is for this Missouri winning streak?
I've actually heard rumors. Sources say that there is a deputy athletic director position available for Shane somewhere. I mean, look, they already have like 62 of them. Honestly, if you put him on the payroll, nobody's going to know. Just give him a title. He doesn't have to do anything. He can just show up, put his picture on the scoreboard, and you'll never lose another game.
Right, exactly. And seriously though, but do you think this is a team? Again, I'm just now coming into basketball, so pardon my ignorance here, but I believe they're ranked now. Is this a team that you project potentially could make the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, not sure it would have been 2 weeks ago, but yeah, they went on the road, beat number 5 Florida. It's probably the best win in the SEC, maybe the best win in the country this year. But this league is, again, it is wild to say the state of Alabama and the SEC as a whole is better at basketball than it is for football. I don't know if anybody would have ever said that, but like Missouri's next 5 games are at Texas, and then they've got ranked Ole Miss at home, at ranked Mississippi State, at ranked Tennessee, and ranked Texas A&M at home. So next 5 games, I don't know. I feel like if you can get 2 of those, you're an NCAA tournament lock.
All right, Gabe, I really appreciate your time. Before you go, can you tell my audience how to follow you and how to find all your work over at PowerMizzou?
Yeah, it's just PowerMizzou.com on Twitter. Just type in PowerMizzou.com to your browser. We're over now part of the 24/7 Sports Network. So sites at all 16 SEC schools. And let Shane know, man, when he gets that job, I got all the restaurant recommendations. We got a couple sponsors. They'll get them hooked up.
All right. Thank you so much, Gabe. I'll cut it right there. Please feel free to reach out if you ever need anything from us.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate you, man.